Welcome to another edition of the Calgary Sessions. I'm your host, Jeff Humphreys. This is episode number 16. Today's guest will be a cool conversation. I think she might be the first guest that is the trifecta of artist, athlete, and entrepreneur. So this conversation will be super cool. We might actually run out of time because there's probably too much to talk about. I will let her introduce herself and just pick something that you're up to, one of your businesses that you operate. So have at her.
Okay, wait. I've explained why I laughed at first. It's because you said, I think this will be good. It was like a total Ron Burgundy moment, ending with a question mark. Well, yeah, the viewers will decide, Jeff.
Exactly.
The listeners, the ears will decide. Hey, everyone.
There.
I'm Joanna Magik. My full name is Majcherkiewicz, but...
And I people have been asking me like, who's this guest? And I'm like, well, it's Joanna. We're like, and I try and pronounce your last name, and
no, it's hard. So maybe 15 years ago, that nickname was given to me while I was sports announcing. So my colleague couldn't say my full last name because I like my last name. I want to celebrate it. Like George
awesome.
Stromolopagus has done it.
Yep.
So I wanted to keep my heritage, fly that flag, but it was hard to do live, and we were doing a lot of live shows. So my co-host, who was Cabby, Cabral Richards, he said of TSN Sportsnet, just to give people context. Mm-hmm. So he just said, fuck it, you're magic. And so that stuck. So Joanna Magik. At first I'm like, it's too like clear, platformy, stripper sounding, but I now it works really well.
It's perfect.
Yeah, I like it.
It's cool that
I've used it for a long time.
And he gave it to you, which is even because he's such a character and a big presence. Yeah. So yeah.
Yes, it's nice. I wonder if like it was Larry Larryson that gave it to me if I'd ever say their name, but because it's a cool guy, I say his name all the time.
Totally.
Yeah.
And what do you artist on athlete, entrepreneur, the business you kind of run right now, just rattle that off too.
Well, I'm focusing on, so you're listening to this during the third wave of the pandemic, the great pandemic. So to give you context, where we are in the space of humanity. So I'm focusing on music. So I've doubled down on music while clubs are closed, while people aren't going out and enjoying music in the traditional sense. So I've doubled down on music, production and DJing. So I still have 2 or 3 shows a week, which is pretty crazy. Mm-hmm. But the other side of me loves working in the business space and creating businesses. Yep. So everything from operationally through to the creative part. So building brands, building brand personalities. So I have a full-time commitment to an amazing company based in Calgary. They're called Kinetics. So that's the bulk of my time right now. And I'm an everyday athlete. So I'm still active. I still do fitness. Have I lost the audience yet? We're going to pick a lane and focus on that stuff.
I'm going to drag you all over the place. I'm literally just going to ask you questions and prod you. Cause this is like, cool. Your background is super interesting to me just on the music side, because obviously I DJ'd for a long time. So your passion for music and my passion for it is probably, you're at a different level, but it'll be fun to jam on that. Sure. What I like to do is just kind of let the guests go back a little bit, just kind of flash back to kind of growing up. I know your sports background was kind of the start of, artist, athlete, entrepreneur. That's kind of where it seemed like you started. I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but take me back to just kind of growing up and what your interests were and how you found your first passion.
Well, I grew up in Calgary, Canada. This is international, right?
Wow. I don't know. Maybe after you're on the show.
So Calgary, Canada. And I spent a lot of time afterwards in Vancouver and Whistler. So rewinding all the way back to the 90s, I grew up in the northeast of Calgary. I immigrated to Canada with my parents.
No way.
Here's a good story. So when we landed in Calgary.
How old are you?
5.
Okay.
And we lived in France before. So I just spoke French. I'm so exotic. So we land and the driver brings us to the Palliser Hotel. So my parents are young, 30-year-olds, and there's me. Mm-hmm. And we step into the golden foyer of the Palliser Hotel. Mm-hmm. It's a Fairmont Hotel, listeners. It's beautiful. And we're coming from Eastern Bloc Poland, communist era. And I'm like spinning around, Sound of Music. This is amazing. America, Canada. And then the driver comes back to get us and he's like, wrong place. So sorry. And that was our first experience in Canada. It's hilarious. So maybe from a young age, I always saw the potential I could one day be at the Palliser. So I grew up in Calgary, Northeast Calgary. I went to high school downtown.
And that's the weird connection to you and I. Same high school.
Right, same high school.
A year apart, but it's kind of we didn't know each other. Maybe like the name-ish, but anyways, go to the same high school just down the street from here. So
that's right. It's pretty cool. We didn't stumble too far away from the tree here, but I loved going to high school downtown. When you're young, it's such a big deal to decide where you'll go to pursue your education. And I don't think that choice exists anymore between junior high and high school. It didn't really for my brothers, but I had the choice of high schools. I was doing the IB program, which is like a little bit elevated learning.
The smart people.
The smart people, yeah.
Don't downplay it.
Totally, the IB program. So I chose to go downtown, which to me felt like going to New York and being around kids with different backgrounds. You had lots of, BIPOC crew, you had LGBTQ community in high school, and then you had all your like typical Calgarian white kids. And I loved that everybody was a blend. And I think that really laid a foundation of everything. Like you're exposed to different music, different sports, different family lifestyles and issues. It was really, really cool. Going to high school downtown.
Yeah. What about, I feel the exact same way, like taking a train down from from my parents' place and I'd walk from the Bay on First Street, straight down First Street to Mary's.
Right.
And at a young age, grade 10, 11, we're still pretty young and we just get exposed to so many different things, whether it's art or architecture or people or just there was so much chaos going on and we're just like walking to school and minding our business. But it was like a very early exposure to downtown. And then, fast forward for me, all of a sudden I'm working clubs and and lounges for a decade downtown. It just feels, it really all fits for me. I don't know what did you feel like once you were downtown, you're like, I like this energy or this is something I can.
Yeah. I imagined leaving Calgary as soon as I could. That was what was going through my mind as a 13-year-old, 14-year-old. And if I had gone to high school closer to home, I would have hung out at the strip mall or I'm not sure what I would be doing. I was always interested in sport though, especially outdoor sports. Anyways, being downtown, I wouldn't hang out at a strip mall. I'd go visit the snowboard shop on 17th Ave. I'd go hang out at Divine Decadence where really weird looking people worked. And I mean that with huge affection. Like they were so interesting and fascinating to me. Their hair was blue and you didn't see that in anywhere at the time. People didn't have nose rings or face tattoos back then. But the few that did were so fascinating. I thought they were really cool. I always felt more inspired and interested in the story of that person than someone who than more of the traditional person, which is kind of flipped now. I feel like some of the quirkiest people look super normal now. But at the time, you were looking for those indicators to show that they were part of the same scene or shared your value system, which at the time was really punk rocky. So, Food Not Bombs versus listening to Nelly. I don't know.
Yeah,
so
totally.
I really appreciate that about downtown. So young crew, if they can make a choice to step out of their comfort zone, it really opens up the world to you. So I wish that for Calgarians.
Totally. It's really interesting to hear you say it because I don't really talk to a bunch of people at high school and like the trek downtown and those first experiences downtown. But I always feel like it was a real moment in my life to kind of shape to your point, where I hung out, where I spent my time. It wasn't strip malls and it wasn't these weird places. It was just more, it was just a little more off the grid, which is cool to think about it now. So you're going to Mary's. When did the snowboarding kind of start?
Yeah, in high school. Towards the end of high school.
Okay.
So I think this is accurate because this podcast is about amazing Calgarians. I think one of the first times I went snowboarding was in a borrowed board on a little hill behind someone's house. And I'm pretty sure I was friends with Matt Bergener at the time. So he's Matt Masters. I think it was a little hill by his house. So Matt
Perkiner. I haven't heard that name in a long time.
Yeah, that's his full name, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
Matt Masters?
I just
So he, I think, I really want to go snowboarding. The friends didn't want to, and I think he took pity on me and let me like rip off a hill in the backyard. Yep. I don't remember. Something like that, which is kind of a funny. Anyways, that's how I'm remembering it. But I started snowboarding super late in high school, and then over the next 2 years into university, I got really into competitive snowboarding. So I did snowboarding was first, and everything around it. Yeah, just everything was second.
All of it. Friends, school.
And my friends became snowboarders real fast. So I went from knowing nobody who was involved in that world to it being totally my world, being in the bubble, which was my bubble for the next 10 years.
No way.
And it was so cool being in Calgary with Canada Olympic Park. The old people will know it as Paskapoo. The new people will know it as Winsport. So if you go to University of Calgary, I was there in the Haskayne School of Business program. You could drive on a 2-3 hour break as long as you wore your long johns to school, throw on your snowboard pants, and do a 1 hour good session in the park.
And you would do it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like over and over every day?
All the time. Not every day, but a lot for sure.
Heavy.
And then the last year of university, I pretty much lived in Fernie and just showed up for group projects.
Awesome.
I missed so many lectures, but my grades were great and I got all the work done. And after snowboarding, you just did schoolwork. So
how did you're to start late and then get to a high level? Just straight natural, or was it dedicated day in and day out trying to figure this thing out?
I think day in, day out, I was hurt a lot. So I rode full time for about 10 years. Half of that time was in Whistler, and there was tons of injuries. So what I've learned from that experience is the idea of preparation, building blocks. Whereas I went in it like many women did at the time, many girls did at the time. You just want to keep up with the guys and you will do whatever it takes.
Just hammer it all the time.
It won't even matter if you get hurt. You're just going to go off the same jumps, go off the same cliffs, because you can't be the girl in the crew. So there's no complaining, and you just push your body as far as it can. So and if you don't have a foundation, and their bodies are built differently, your center of gravity is different. So, but it takes you a while to figure that out.
You think it's confidence that gets you to that point where you do figure it out, or is it just straight pain and then you have to figure it out because you can't do it?
I only had eyes for snowboarding. Like if you're in a room of people and you lock eyes with like a hot person, that was snowboarding for me. I just it didn't matter if I broke an arm. I knew I'd be back in a month. And so you just, you don't think long-term. You don't think about your knees at my age. So snowboarding was amazing. And growing up in Calgary, you have access to incredible mountains. The snowboarding history here is so rich. And I loved speaking to that when I worked for the Vancouver 2010 Olympics. I gifted everybody a book about the snowboarding history out in this area.
Cool. By
Dano Pendergrass. So everyone on the Burton team was gifted this book about the history here. And I think it's mind-blowing for a lot of people what snowboard firsts happened in this area.
Because when do you think it, and I never grew up snowboarding, but when did it actually start? Like early 90s, like was it?
March 8th, 1971.
I'm glad you can.
Google that. It's a lie. Fake news right here on the podcast.
Crazy.
I have no idea. And I haven't thought about snowboarding in so long because music's been my last 10 years sort of. But, I think, let's just start a shitstorm. I think the first snowboard shop ever was the snowboard shop. Let's see what you guys say about that. But it for sure is one of the early ones.
Yeah,
but for the Achenbach family, Ken Achenbach, and that grew the scene here. I remember it was so cool to go visit that store. And it was mind-blowing to be sitting at his house in Whistler working on, I don't know what we were working on. something to do with his snowboard camp. He ran a camp called Camp of Champions out in Whistler forever. He's a legend there as well. His brother's on the first cover of Trans World Snowboarding. Fun fact, one half of the small town DJs, Mike Grimes, is on the inside cover of the first ever Trans World Snowboarding. So that's cool. I think one of the early, really complicated celebrated tricks that women were doing was done by Tara Teagan at Lake Louise. Yeah. So, and I was watching all these girls like Stacey Burke. They were my idols.
Could you hang with them?
And sorry, I meant Sarah Burke. Stacey Burke is a skier, but Sarah was a big local shredder when I was young, and she worked at the Source, I believe.
And were they older than you, and you were trying to keep up to them, or could you kind of hang with them? And you're just kind of trying to figure out what they were up to, and
they didn't know me. I was a fan, and they probably are only a couple years older than me, but back then that was a big difference.
For sure.
But my peer at the time was Leanne Pelosi, and her and I ended up running a women's snowboard camp for almost 10 years.
Awesome.
Our goal was to elevate women in sport, in snowboarding. So we would bring X Games medalists, girls from videos like Tara Dakitis, all these really big names at the time.
Yep.
We'd bring them to ski hills across Canada and America and help girls get better at snowboarding. So give them that confidence to be better. And it really worked. From Saturday morning to Sunday night, the progression in these young female athletes was insane. And they'd go from not knowing how to really hit a jump well to doing their first 180 or 360, which was really, really cool. And Leanne's a great person to call out because she has achieved so much in snowboarding, and I don't think the average Canadian knows her name, like Mark McMorris, but she won Athlete of the Year in the industry. She won the US Open a few times. She's such a great person and super inclusive and brings everybody up. And having known her for so long, that's 100% the person she is. But she is still very famous in snowboarding. And if you watch TV, I don't know who has TVs, but if you see a Honda commercial, a snowboarding Honda commercial, that's her. So that was my peer at the time. So that's who I snowboarded with.
When you started launching those events back then, did you have the marketing brain? Because your marketing brain is obviously a strong piece to what you do right now. Back then, did it just feel like a natural idea to kind of host the party and put these things together? Or like, how did that come up?
Oh, let's go back to when I'm 8 years old, Jeff.
I'm game.
I think, genetically, my family is really go get 'em, high achievers, really nothing's in your way type of people.
You felt that at a young age?
I think I really maybe see that more now. But also we were a very traditional Eastern European family, meaning, woman ironing board. Just kidding, Dad. Not snowboard, ironing board. But so coming to Canada, I learned really young, and I was about 8 or 9. I would sell origami door to door.
No way.
So I learned that you control what income you make. Like you have the power to do that. You don't have to wait for someone to hire you. You can just go do this. I think that really planted the seed for all the entrepreneurial stuff I did. I did a newspaper in grade 6, the Sixers Bulletin.
Good name.
Very descriptive, and then a little on the nose. And then what question am I answering? Where the entrepreneurial spirit? The snowboard camp. So I did do all the operations and brand stuff. So we needed photos and
felt
fonts.
Natural.
It felt natural.
You're just like,
I like to do it. I like to do it. And I remember we'd be out riding in Whistler, and Leanne's going up to do more riding, other laps. And I was like, well, I'm going to go down and work on the business. And it's not because I hated to do that. I liked to work on the business.
It's cool to hear you say that you know, whether 8 is the year, but you can go back and figure out that you were making moves back then to get you to exactly where you are today, which is,
you don't have to wait for an allowance from your parents. You just go. I don't know why they let me do that.
Yeah,
they
totally.
Were like, go make $1 selling your origami for 5 cents door to door.
Were your friends doing that, or were you kind of no? It was a weird thing, wasn't it?
Probably was weird, but no one at 8, no one knows. There's no Instagram. No one knows I'm doing that.
No.
This weird thing.
No, you're just
walking around selling paper birds.
Were they good?
My neighbor made them. No.
Oh, your
and it
neighbor
wasn't
made
a
them
long.
and you sold them?
Yeah, it
Awesome.
wasn't. I think this is only did this a few times. This wasn't like an ongoing thing.
No, but still, like it's an idea.
Yeah, my dad will probably be like, Joanna, you did it once. But I remember selling something over that time, and for sure the origami was in the mix, and it was a family down the block that made me.
Awesome. That's cool.
Blurry on the
Random,
details, but that's
super cool.
Yeah, very weird now that I think about it. But yeah.
The sports side, obviously, it's super interesting to me just because sport was a big part of my life too.
Yes,
but I
you're
really
a big deal water skier. I learned. It's crazy.
Say that lightly.
Yeah. No, it's.
But where was your peak at snowboarding? And once you got there, did you realize, okay, I'd finally got here. Now I can take my energy elsewhere? What did that?
Oh, I remember the moment too. This was big because I think people find it is a hard decision to make when to exit.
Yep.
And I knew, I guess if you just keep your eyes open and you swivel your head, you know when it's time to switch things up. And for me, it was, we're at Mammoth Mountain. So this is just outside of Los Angeles. Beautiful big mountain. It's early season and I'm riding with the best riders at the time. So, the caliber of warm-up run was insane. So everyone, there's this big jump at the bottom. I don't think it's big by today's standards anymore, but it was probably 60, 70 feet.
Massive.
It was big, yeah. And I was very scared to hit it. And I remember getting the courage up to hit it. And so I lived through it. I'm like, phew. And there was a photographer there. So everyone's getting all their shots. And I try to do a trick over it. So I hit the jump. I'm going to throw up. I'm so nervous. I just land it and don't die. And I look at the photographer and I'm like, please say you got that shot. And she's like, nah, I didn't get it. And I like just flippantly, because she's shooting Shaun White's there, all like Jamie Anderson.
All the names, all
the X Games medalists are there. And there's only like 20 people on the hill. It's early season, early access stuff going on. And so she's just like, go up and do it again, right? This is just go. And I got up there and I look at that jump. It's a little dot far away. And I'm like, I don't have more juice in me. Like this is, I looked at how old I was, just thought through all those variables. And the girls around me were hitting that jump switch, which means backwards.
And were they younger or same age as you?
I was older at the time, but there were girls my age that
closer.
were totally.
And they were still charging.
They were still charging, yeah. And they were maybe going through the same emotions, but the level that they were at was so much higher that I decided going into snowboarding, I knew from the beginning that as soon as I found myself, working a really low wage job just to ski or snowboard wasn't going to be my strategy. That didn't feel right for me. Going back to that like high achiever 8-year-old. So I felt like that's what was happening. Like I'm no longer pushing any sort of limits. Not that I really was at the beginning, I don't think, but I could at least keep up, but now there's no way. They were riding at such an amazing level. So I made the choice to work in the industry. So I started to hit up all my network and I ended up working with Red Bull Canada, progressing to marketing manager for Alberta. And so that brought me, there's a few years in between there, but that brought me back to Calgary. That's how I ended up returning from the West Coast.
Cool. And you worked for somebody for a while before you started DJing? Where's the transition piece there between like...
DJing was always the side for me. Like
So you'd have a full-time job?
Yes.
And then you just play
music on the side. Yep. And my full-time jobs were, if people perceive DJing as a really fun job, I had the marketing version of that. So I was working for Red Bull Canada, always working with sport and culture.
Which it sounds like, I don't know you, but it sounds like the perfect fit for what you're into.
And music was always in the background. Like as a high school kid, I would volunteer at CJSW. My friends were in bands and I would do record or CD reviews for Vox. So I was always into music heavily. I had those CD binders and I would record mixtapes off the radio. So I was always doing that stuff.
All sorts of music?
Yeah, until I discovered Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Great is that? Like 10 or something?
Yeah, maybe.
I can't remember if it was high school or junior high.
I think it's junior high.
I can't remember.
Right. So the DJ thing was, on this side. So I worked for Red Bull Marketing.
And what'd you do? So when you say you work for Red Bull, are you cruising around to different events? And
it was marketing manager. So you had specific targets for building the brand in the community. And it was so great because that's how I met a lot of the local DJs and the dominant athletes in the area. Red Bull also launched their first mainstream athlete program on my watch. So that was Dion Phaneuf. So they signed their first NHL player as a brand. So I wasn't leading those projects. I was supporting those projects, but I was doing a lot of small fire events. So the second ever Red Bull 3 Style, which is a multi-genre DJ competition, the second or third one happened in Edmonton, and that's how I met small town DJs who are local legends here and outside of this country. But that's how I met Pete and Mike, and they were the judges of my first ever music DJ battle, which was in Edmonton. Cadence Weapon was in it. He's look him up. He's an amazing musician. So I worked afterwards for Quicksilver. And I was marketing manager for Canada, and I worked on the Roxy Woman side.
Cool.
So managing that brand nationally, a lot of retail marketing, a lot of sport marketing always. So surfing in Tofino, then surfing in Lawrencetown, out in Eastern Canada, seeing our beautiful country.
It sounds so perfect.
Through all these experiences. I'm really grateful. It was awesome. So my job would be surfing, snowboarding. I was sports announcing a lot. So I hosted a outdoor sports show called The Ride Guide for 5 or 6 years.
I remember that.
Yeah. Did you watch it? Yeah. Sunday mornings on Global?
Well, yeah, because we weren't PVRing it.
Right. That's right. Yeah. Up until a few years ago, I still got people sending me messages on Facebook.
Cool.
It was streaming in like Budapest or I don't know.
So random. But that was amazing. So I had these jobs. So after I started sucking at snowboarding, I was hired. You say that. I love it.
I was hired to talk about it. So that also opened up the announcing career.
That's why you're so comfortable with the mic and camera.
Yeah. Or I got those jobs because of it. No. I have a lot of exposure to having a piece of foam in my face.
And when you started doing the announcing, it was such a natural fit because you played at a high level and you could get inside the athlete's head and then and probably bring a different perspective to the audience, which I'm sure was pretty natural for you.
I think maybe that's why it worked. It was really natural. I'm curious about the athlete's story.
Yeah.
And a lot of them felt comfortable with me because we had kind of come through the contest scene together. So they would go, oh, hey, like they didn't. A lot of the superstars didn't know me directly, but they were like recognizing me and they started to feel okay with sharing a little bit more. But then once you get to a certain point, you need to, if you're doing it full time, you have to jump to the next level of skill, like anything you do, which is what I'm going through in music. So you have to polish up. And that's when you start to see the people around you that are amazing at it. Like Sal Masekela is was a huge presence in the industry. And I watch how he announced all the X Games forever. He was like the only black guy in action sports for a long time, it seemed. And so he is such a legend. And so to get to that level, I tried to take acting classes.
But you wanted to get there.
Yeah. I was into it. I thought this was a great life.
Cool.
But I found it hard to fake the funk. Like I think my strength was just being really freestyle. But I learned a lot through all my co-hosts and through all those experiences.
So you said and I love recognizing a pattern when I get to talk to people. You know, and I might be connecting dots that aren't there, but when you're snowboarding, you reach a certain point, self-awareness kicks in. You're like, I'm just seeing things, and I know I should probably make a different move. And it sounds like a similar experience in the announcing. Like you get to a certain point and you're like, I need to rethink this just because like I know that either I just don't have it or I don't have the energy to go there. Like it sounds like a similar decision process?
There was self-awareness and a decision to start to decline offers to announce events.
Yep. Just because you knew you didn't have the chops to be the best, or you knew you didn't have the energy to become the best?
Well, there was more of a practical approach. So the biggest events are in America. So I had to get an American work visa, and I was doing the Burton Opens. And to get there, though, you have to prove, to get that visa, I forget what the name of that visa is.
Oh, yeah.
You have to prove that you have a special unique skill set that they can't get in America. But there's so many amazing announcers in America, and so many athletes that are retiring that are feeding the pipeline.
Gotcha.
So to get the big jobs with the big income, you have to be in the US. You don't want to announce a series of smaller events in Canada. I mean, I do if they make sense, but I don't want that to be my main career. So that feeds into it. And also, snowboarding only has X amount of events a year. So then, okay, what about the rest of the year? Do you get into surfing?
Yep.
Do you get into skateboarding? So I did have a chance to do Street League, which is the biggest skateboarding contest in America, maybe globally.
Cool.
It's a big deal. Like the first place is $100,000.
Oh, it's real.
It's real.
Yep.
So I went to Kansas City to announce that. Again, I'm not really supposed to be there. I'm a Canadian without that visa. So it made things tricky. I paid double taxes. And I wasn't great at it. I didn't think I was good. Snowboarding, I knew it so intimately.
Yeah.
I felt every little molecule of that vibe. And in skateboarding, I'm like, do I call them by their nickname or their real name? Like, it just felt weird to say their real names, but I don't know them as personally. So it just didn't feel as natural. So I just decided, what a great run.
Yep.
Like all these amazing experiences.
Crazy experiences.
Yeah. And I was hosting the TV show still. So I was still doing all this other travel.
Yep.
And experiencing this, essentially touring North America on my snowboard for a TV show. It was really crazy. So it was a great chunk of life.
Yep.
And then working with the brands, endemic brands in the sport, like the Red Bulls and the Quicksilvers.
It's a perfect fit.
Was really great.
And when did your exit at Quicksilver, was that full-time?
Yeah, it was full-time. And I was doing maternity leave for someone. That's how I got into the role. And then I continued on with them afterwards.
Yep.
And then after Quicksilver, I worked for Lululemon corporate. I worked for Aritzia corporate.
So you've been on some big brands like your entire career.
It's been great. And each role was different. So I learned a different aspect of running a business.
Yep.
So I had a career coach, a business coach.
Oh, yeah.
And they said, if you have entrepreneurial tendencies, I should make those like suicidal tendencies graphics.
It's so funny you say tendencies, because that's a word I like to use too for myself, because the full blown, it was never really a thing. I just had these moments like you at a young age, and had like cutting lawns, shoveling sidewalks, or always looking at an angle to potentially make some money or test out an idea. But to have that full on, like, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm going to do my own thing. It was never.
Yeah.
I had to put
maybe
a lot of dots on the board.
Maybe that's the punk rock side, where you just rebel against authority or people telling you what to do. I'm not sure.
That's definitely part of it, right? Like, just, you get to a certain point in your career, and if your leader is not speaking your same language and being a high performer, for me, that's when I'm like, my spidey sense is up. It's probably time to do something else.
I don't want it to sound like I'm not open to, like I have to do things my way or a certain way. I know, especially having been in a leadership position in these companies and hiring a lot of people and training a lot of staff, that I know who I don't want to be as an employee to someone else. I really want to be open to learning, because I know that they can be right. And when I see young people resist some sort of training, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. Like, I was definitely you.
Yep.
So I try to be really open and be more collaborative.
You need to make that T-shirt or hat, the tendencies one.
Yeah, entrepreneurial tendencies.
just make like, well, at least make one for you, one for me.
Right. Okay.
Whatever you do, just make it.
Done. I was gonna make I can't reveal that. Surprise. No, I want you copying me. Look at this idea hoarder. I swear I'm open. So having these different roles was amazing in these brands, but that whole industry is based in mostly Vancouver or Toronto, especially action sports or outdoor sports. So, but I knew I wanted to be in Calgary. I have a home base here. I had my family here, my relationship here. And what was I going to do in Calgary? I had to find some sort of way to make money here. So through all those skill sets I acquired, it kind of landed on developing my gym concept. So music was always in the background. I was still DJing in the background this whole time, thinking this is for other people. This job is definitely for those people with musical ears. I never thought that I would ever be on the other side of that, except for maybe at a DJ party or two. But I really sort of respected everyone in that space, especially on your show. You've interviewed DJ Rice, and I held those names in such high esteem that there's no way I would dirty their name by trying to be in that space with them. Maybe that's something that comes from being a woman too in the space, or
I think,
or that they were really good and they were a really big deal.
But it also, I think it goes back to you being a high performer in sport. You understand that hierarchy, you know, like when to talk, when not to talk, you know, if there's the subtle nuances on a hill that you need to, you know, let the senior OGs do their thing and then it's your turn. Like, I think I picked up a lot of those life lessons in sport, just understanding my role.
Yeah, sport is such a good teacher.
Yeah.
That's why I loved being part of our snowboard camp. It was called MGT Snowboard Camp, which stood for Have a Guess, Jeff.
Oh, I can't even, like, my mind
I'll make it up. It stood for More Good Times because we wanted sport to just, we wanted sport to remain super fun, especially in snowboarding. We didn't want to get too serious, but on the flip side, we want you to learn. So it was like oranges to oranges sort of concept. So my wish is, or what I loved about that is that we were making women fall in love with sport and sticking it out, because they weren't worried about their hair, their makeup, their relationship with someone else, you know, a him or a her or a them. So it took them out of that space, and they just got to celebrate how strong their bodies were and what they were capable of, and be proud of their work. That was so, so cool. And so I love sport for that. And I definitely learned a ton of lessons through it.
Yep. So go back.
Very humbling to be in sport, for sure.
Agreed. Just talk. So when you're about to start this new venture, and you're still
the gym,
and you're DJing at parties, events, or what are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing all sorts of events. So, and because I'm busy with other stuff, I was really selective, which I think helped me out in the beginning. I would do fashion shows. I DJed at Holt Renfrew a lot, which is amazing. I would be there for 6 hours, 8 hours.
6 hours.
And my goal was to never play the same song twice.
Were you exhausted after those shifts?
No, that's how I knew I loved it, because it's the only thing that time would fly. So I gave myself little challenges. I would never take a bathroom break. Like I was
machine.
There. I was committed to not. So, I did stuff for Mode Models.
So kind of one-off.
Tesla. Yeah, lots of one-off stuff. Yeah, for some great brands. When Louis Vuitton came to Canada, they brought me on board. And I think that was just all through word of mouth. So being able to curate the soundtrack, because I had so much exposure to music from being a young person.
So you would play anything? You would play the music based on the event, but you had your selection was, I'm guessing, very wide, so you can go wherever you had to.
It was wide. And I should layer in that a huge part of where I got my music knowledge and education was, first I was interested in it. So I would lean in and
from a young age, right?
Yeah. And be aware of it. And going to all these Red Bull events, working with all these artists and DJs. I did that with Monster Energy as well for a bit.
Just another name.
Yeah, there's a few, and then even with Quicksilver too, there was lots of events going on. All the action sports events that I go to, they'd have after parties, and so I would see amazing artists. Like I remember seeing Macklemore the weekend at the Burn Open, the weekend that he blew up. So if you want to sing that song right now, do you want to pop some tags on?
You can sing maybe. No.
But it was just really cool because I think that week they broke and they were going to SNL to perform. So being at all these amazing events, world-class events, booking world-class talent and DJs, my ear just heard a lot.
Yep.
And in your downtime, you're spending time with that crew and hearing what they talk about, what they listen to. So it created really great music education for me.
It's like university.
Yeah.
Music university.
University. So I remember hearing a lot of DJs talk about how much they loved Vinyl Richie and Foxy Moron, which they're based out of Whistler, and there was so much respect for them.
Yep.
And so whenever they'd be around or playing, I would be pretty much writing down like song for song what it was. Studying. Not train spotting is different because I wasn't a DJ at the time.
Yeah.
Not really. I didn't think of it as that. So I was just admiring, being like, that's so great. Wow, that's amazing. And I remember a moment where, like, this is how skilled they are. So imagine you're at a rave in the woods, like peak time. Like it is the moment of the night. And I remember Vinyl Richie goes on to play, and the first song he plays, I mean, again, this is like bass lovers, bass heads. And the first song he plays is The Gambler, Kenny Rogers. Awesome. He plays a country song.
Awesome.
And people lost their minds because he's such a great curator. He read the vibe so well. Yep. He knew, and he's so confident in what he was going to play next.
Was that his first track?
Good. Yeah, that's what he opened with.
Which
I mean, my memory's a little foggy.
But yeah, but that's what he came on with.
Yeah.
And for me, I love that idea to reset a room or reset a crowd. You know, like just to have the confidence to understand that you can reset them with this, but you already know in your head where you're going to take them.
Right.
That does take a lot of skill and some confidence to pull that off.
Yeah.
It sounds super, I can kind of visualize what would happen, but you know, at some of those events, like when the beat's been driving for so long, to reset it with The Gambler, all of a sudden they'd be like, okay, here we go.
I don't know if it would work in the warehouse, but in a warehouse setting, but it really worked in that environment because he is so good at what he does. And so I've been really lucky to be around so many talented DJs, and because I've been on the other side, the annoying person in the crowd, I have such a high tolerance for debauchery when I play, and for people just saying ridiculous things.
It just rolls off, right?
Yeah, and like I totally get it.
Play
like,
something good. I'll get to it.
I want to play something good for them. If people say the funniest things too. So I ended up having I didn't really have the bandwidth for residents, but I did happily jump on with Home and Away Shuffle Club.
Yep.
So that's a little local spot. And then I've played a few opening sets at Hi-Fi and Hi-Fi Club.
Yep.
So
and
that's the scoop.
Your music, can you actually say what style you play now, or you still can do anything?
Yeah, I think open format is more rare. I will do it for special situations.
Yep.
If there's a company that needs a specific soundtrack, or I still like to play. Again, I remember being in the audience, so I still like to play all the cheesy stuff. It's really fun.
Yep.
So I have some open format sets on my Twitch channel, which is, I just call it the kitchen sink.
We'll link it up.
Everything. But my favorite thing to play is definitely bassy house music. So I like how Ray said in his interview that when you walked past a sound system back in the day, he talked about the Jamaican guys bringing their sound system, and your hat would blow off with the bass.
Yep.
I really love that side, and then moving more into the like techno area.
Yep.
So, and blend in some tribal. It's very eclectic. I love the UK sound. So that's sort of where I get really excited, is playing in that area.
Can you go back to a spot and pinpoint at a time when you're DJing, whether it's your biggest gig or a moment, and when you kind of had an awakening, you know, like full body chills, like goosebumps up, and you just can't believe this is happening? People are screaming at what you just dropped. Can you go back to that? Do you have a moment that you go to?
No, I don't really go to a specific. Recent memory?
Or a feeling. Can you go back to that feeling I just described?
Yeah.
As a DJ, I'm assuming you've had it before.
Yes.
And
yeah, for sure. When you nail it, when there's a real good connection between what the crowd wants and what you give them. which is ultimately your job.
But it's rare, right? Like it doesn't happen, and especially when you're doing weeklies or lots of shows. That magic little moment is something, and this is me talking. I'm really curious to hear how you think, but it's something I chased every gig. And what I found really interesting was you give so much energy when you're playing to a crowd.
Right.
That's
true.
You got to get up and you got to feed the machine. And when you don't get the reaction, at the end of the night, you might still be buzzing, but when you think back, you're like, it could have just been a little bit better. But the moment it hits, and I got goosebumps up and down, and I'm like shaking, trying to grab the next record because I can't believe what just happened.
Yeah.
Those are the moments I like. That's why I DJ'd for so long, just chasing those moments.
Yeah, the high. And I think any artist or any person hopefully has it in whatever they do for a living.
It's rare though, isn't it?
It is rare, but it's frequent enough that it keeps you going. So I would say every few weeks or every few shows, you get that sort of feeling. I get that from coaching fitness too, because it's music driven.
Right.
And your body's moving to it really intensely. So the reaction's elevated.
Yep.
Whereas someone who's a little distracted with a drink, their friends, and then there's music, they're not connecting as directly with you. Whereas in a fitness setting, it is.
They're
and
like
the music is
they're
super zeroed in on what's going on. So I think that's why people get so addicted to group fitness atmospheres where music is a big part of it, because you've a double hit.
Yep.
You've got the physicality, the endorphins from that, and then the music. So it's really a very intoxicating elixir.
Well said.
Yeah.
How do you, you said earlier, I can't remember if it was before we got on camera, you doubled down on music right now?
Yeah.
What is
Which
that?
didn't sound funny, but now it sounds funny.
It sounds awesome. But it's like you're like all in. And what does that mean to you when you say double down on music? Like what are you doing differently now?
Sure. So I think people can relate to dabbling in something, and then there's a day where you decide that you are going to describe yourself as the thing. You decide that you are a woodworker, a glass blower, a financial advisor. You decide that that's the title you're going to get behind. You're going to put on your social media. You're going to go get photo shoots as a woodworker or financial advisor or pumpkin cutter, whatever you're doing. You decide to invest resources and time more intentionally in that and give it a go. And I love the saying that to go somewhere, you got to start somewhere to go somewhere. So that takes the fear out of it for me, because if you want to end up here, you think about it enough, you like it enough, you got to start here. This is where you're starting. You're not going to be great. You're not going to nail it. You're going to make a bunch of mistakes. And that's cool. That's part of the process. So my hope is for anyone who wants to be in the music space or any sort of space where things look intimidating or you feel like you have an imposter syndrome. My imposter syndrome is very short, only because I know anyone can do anything, and you just got to start and push. And then you figure out, it's good to start small, because then you learn if it's even right for you, if it's worth all those resources.
That's it.
So I have a budget that I put towards music every month, music buying, all the software you need.
It's all the production stuff you're up to. Like it's an investment,
there's a
right?
whole, even from, if you want people to download your mixes, you pay a fee to Hyped It, which creates a gateway where you capture people's emails. So that's a little cost. There's tons of little costs. So I dedicate a certain amount of money for that per month. And I know how I'm going to keep spending it until a certain goal is reached or a certain time is hit, and then I'll reassess, just like I did at the top of that jump in snowboarding. And then I'll decide, okay, well, now I'm just going to do it for fun locally, and I won't be making it as such of a big part of my identity. But right now my goal is I want to headline a really big famous stage, because why not?
Just what you do.
I mean that with respect. Like you should.
Well, you got to have a goal, right?
You should have a goal. Yeah. And if it doesn't work out, okay. But if it does, amazing. Like what if you dream too small?
Totally.
So there's no harm in it. I don't feel like there's a difficult pressure at all. I feel like it's a fun opportunity, a fun thing to think of.
What did you change your title on your social media platforms?
I think about a year ago, I actually wrote the word DJ, that I'm a DJ, and I felt so like such a weirdo.
just because the characters you were around for so many years and the level of respect you had for them and understanding their craft.
Yeah, it was their job, the work that they did, and I didn't want to make it sound like I thought I was had done the same work or had deserved the same title. So you feel really weird about that.
Yep.
It's so you
self-awareness.
Do it slowly. But you just sort of like I wrote DJ, and then in a year late, then I started to post photos of me DJing, and then I started to make a mix, and then. But it takes a village. I have so many people helping me with everything from making music to sharing music. It's a really great community. Everyone really looks out for each other. It's awesome.
If you're a good person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Minor detail.
It's, yeah. And to that point, I feel like you've got to surround yourself with great crew. That's really important.
Yep.
I've been blown away. Like the DJ community has done things for me that just really make humanity shine. So when times were tough, I was going through a situation. I remember someone like Scratch Bastard, Paul, who we're in some situation and he went out of his way to mention me and recognize me. Yep. And he said my full last name.
Like properly?
Properly.
Oh, wow.
Which blew me away.
No kidding. Because I'm not going to say it.
And he didn't have to do that. He was just being really nice. Like the context was very friendly, and it was really nice. He was being like a good person. I've had that as well with small town DJs, and full disclosure, I'm dating Mike for a very long time. But but even the community around that, they have done lots of great things that they didn't need to do that were total friend moves. And it's been really nice.
It is a cool community. It's and especially in Calgary, it's pretty close knit. There's some people that have been doing this for a long time in Calgary, whether it's Rice or Pete and Mike or Dean or Testa or all these guys, Sid, Faust, like all these. Once you're in the community, it's just this lifelong friendship, which is very unique. It's just, back in the day, it might have been a little more competition around it. There wasn't a lot of gigs around, so you had to kind of pick your spots and try and get in. But once you step back out of it, you're friends with these people because of that passion, that passion around music. You connect with these people, and it's a lifelong friendship, and they will do everything for you or anything for you. Yeah,
that's great. That's a good crew that you mentioned. Those were all older than me people.
Yep.
Older than me people. You're going to voice over smarter words, right?
I would have said the exact same thing.
Okay, good. So I really looked up to that whole crew too. Who taught, and again, this goes back to my sports years. My best learnings, I learned so much from the people around me, and my business partner, Leanne, she taught me something amazing. This is my business partner from the snowboarding camp, not my gym business partners. So what Leanne did, I don't know if she ever said this intentionally, but she showed me, because her star was rising really fast, and she didn't hoard any of it. Cool. She had a photo shoot. She would invite 10 friends. Like, she brought everybody along with her. And
was that rare? Was that rare?
Well, now I think it's rare, but at the time, because she was a close friend, that's all I sort of knew. Yep. But I remember being in a situation where I want to make a certain decision, which was very hoardy. And I know she wouldn't do that. She would be open, and she wasn't insecure, lots to go around. And I think that's such a great way to be as a leader. And this dynamic is talked a lot about in women in business. Like why, or even in life, like why didn't women vote for Hillary? So there's a whole can of worms. But so being in the leadership positions I've had, I really try to be mindful of that and bring people up.
Instead of just kind of keeping it all to yourself and like, if I got a little bit, I got to keep it all. And like, if I get a little bit more, I got to keep that too.
It's like, you're not writing your answers with your hand around the paper. You're open. And that also applies not just for women, for all of them.
All of them.
All of them.
I want to get to this point too, before I let you go. the gym.
Yeah.
Quickly, as fast as you want to go, just like get into what you've done and what it is.
So entrepreneurial tendencies, speaking of which, when are you
gonna drop tendencies, do you think? Will you ever? Are you at a point right now where you can say you can drop tendencies, or are you still like?
No, because it's my DNA, I think.
Like tendencies to me is like I say the same thing because I don't want to, until I get to a certain point in my head, in my career, then I can say I'm a full-blown entrepreneur. Until I get there, I'm going to.
Oh, I see what you mean.
I'm always going to say tendency. That's why I'm always going to keep the word tendencies the way I describe things too.
I never thought of that. Okay.
Sorry, anyways.
That's a really interesting observation.
That's just me randomly talking right now.
Yeah. I like the idea of never arriving, though. That's kind of cool, too. You're just always on the journey, because smarter people than me repeatedly say that it's not the destination, it's the journey, and it's who you're with. So it's cool if I never arrive, because the ride is the best part. So with the gym, the boxing gym, it was a unique concept.
What's the name?
Undercard Boxing Studio, UNDRCARD, and it was founded 5 years ago with myself and two other women, which was really cool again, entering the boxing space, new concept. And I'm so proud of it because that didn't exist in the industry. There were some gyms that were similar in New York, but the ones that people know now, I don't think your listeners will be this in the industry to know the other brand names, but they came out pretty much the same month or a few after us. So we truly have a timestamp on how original what we were doing is. And it is a unique mashup of experiences. So I was so proud that Calgary, Canada birthed this concept and this brand that was then heavily influenced other businesses around the world. So we have a total imitator in Australia, same name, almost the same graphics.
Awesome.
And there's a local gym. There's one in Edmonton, and which is cool because the one in Edmonton, or a lot of people just have come to me straight up. I was there every day running the business, doing all the things around the business. They would come up and say that they're gonna create the same thing. And I like that they were open about it too. It made it like, it's business. You'll get competition right away. You're a fool to think that won't happen with what you're doing. That people
especially
won't
if it's
be
good,
inspired.
Right? When it's good. There's some like cliche saying that if somebody's copying what you're doing, it's a compliment. Like there's something around that.
Right. No greater compliment. But I also believe that if you try to stifle that and you think someone's going to take your last idea, why are you thinking it's your last idea? I feel like the more you have that flow open, the more it will flow. So, So Undercard Boxing Studio was born about 5 years ago, and it was an amazing space. It's a music-driven boxing workout, and a word we never use to describe it. I would never lecture people on it, but I would really steer them away from describing it as boxercise, because it was authentic boxing technique using music as a tool.
Like, were you hitting the bag on the beat kind of thing?
Yeah. But you play with the tempos. So a boxer will hit like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. That's how they'll punch. Or they'll go 1, 2, and they'll roll back, and then they'll hit upper hook. So they'll do these moves really in a fight, and all we do to create an easy learning space, you just follow the tempos that we cue you for.
Cool.
It can be on the beat, on the half beat, every other beat, and the music just motivates you to work longer and harder. So endurance and intensity go up with music and fitness. So that was the concept.
Cool.
And I got to merge my love of punk rock, thrash, old school hip hop. Diplo came to our space and worked out 2 years ago, and he's now training to be in a professional fight. He has a boxing tattoo on his shoulder. Fun fact about Diplo. But he's been there. Red Light, who's UK house music. He was in our space. Justin Martin, Scratch Bastard. The small town DJs are regulars.
As they should be.
Or else. And, Ilangelo, he produced The Weeknd, etc.
Cool.
A lot of artists have come through, which is so great to see them in that space working out to music.
Yeah, because
music was so important. I would review everyone's music for the first 6 months a year. You couldn't put a song on in that space without clearing it by me first. Yeah. So I was a hard boss in that respect.
Was it hard to like choreograph the workout based around the music? Like, did that take time to pick the song and then figure out figure out all the movements you were going to put towards that song? It seems like an in-depth process versus just like putting on your playlist and walking
have to prepare a lot. The instructors would, big respect to them, they would spend 2-3 more hours, especially at the beginning, preparing every single class. So there's tricks like you tag stuff and you save your lessons for use down the road. But if you're pairing 12 songs together, a new set, it's essentially a new DJ set every class. You can't repeat stuff. You have to make sure it flows as it should in fitness, like recovery, intensity, all that. So it's a really hard job. I think a lot of people, you can't wing it, and instructors that are winging it, I don't think you're getting the same quality as from an instructor that's really planning well for you.
Focused.
So really focused effort. It's really good. But I've since exited undercard, and now my new fitness music project is called It's Club Sweat.
Yes, it is.
Fitness bangers only. So it's, I've hoarded all this music. Speaking of hoarding.
I'm surprised you used that word, but it's perfect.
Yeah. I'm giving my music to people. So rather than having, I don't believe there's bad music. There's just like good music and everything else.
I agree.
Smarter than me said that once.
Agreed.
So I want more of this kind of, the music that I rally around. I don't usually hear it at fitness studios. So I'm going to unleash it into the world.
Awesome.
I have so much music, and I curate folders and playlists for people, and that's all done through my Patreon. So if you're a fitness instructor and you've been doing it forever, great, fresh content for you. If you're a busy instructor, great, it's done for you. If you're a newbie and you don't understand how beat-driven workouts work, how to time stuff, that every song is a math formula, like that's all weird for you, I will coach you through that. So that's awesome. It's Club Sweat.
We'll link that up too.
Okay.
So your bio on this one's just going to be like bio, and then like links all the way down.
Also working on changing her horoscope. She is just so talented.
So funny.
My dad will be like, pick something.
We need to wrap this up.
Okay, bye.
You are, you have so many cool stories. It's been really fun to sit down with you. The only canned question in this whole show is, when I say the word Calgary, where does your head go?
Opportunity.
Awesome.
That's what an entrepreneur says, right?
Well,
I don't know. Yeah.
It's interesting, right? Everyone kind of
do it. Go for it. Yeah.
Which is, it's cool.
What's the worst answer?
The worst? Well, there's never the worst answer, but there's.
Do you want high ratings, Jeff, or what?
It's kind of, a lot of people talk about, experiences and family and friends and opportunity. And so it's, there's always this similar tone for us Calgarians. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks
Super
for
fun.
creating this platform.
Yeah, it was fun to hear your story.
For Calgarians.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you for listening, everybody.
Talk soon. Bye.